Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Chris Hayden. I'm a producer here at Fierce. And today I'm joined by two guests. We have Ahmed Al-Sayed, president and co-founder of Ostro. And we have Chase Feiger, who is the CEO and also co-founder of Ostro. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
First question, we've been talking a little off camera about this, but given the evolution of pharma marketing in the recent years, what do you see as the biggest shift in the pharma marketing landscape or the most disruptive influence?
Yeah. So I'm going to start by talking about this aspect of consumerization. Now, before I jump into the definition of consumerization, Chris, the first thing that comes to your mind when I say it is you think I'm talking about something that has only something to do with consumers or occasions. Consumerization is really an ideal UX UI scenario for end users. If you think about your favorite experience as a user, it's probably using best in class consumer applications such as Uber, Lyft, Netflix. We talked about TikTok a little bit. You can recall during our conversation, Instagram. So again, those are consumerized experiences. Now, Chris, the ideal scenario to remember in your mind is that doctors are consumers. When they are not actively taking care of patients, they are using the same exact applications that patients are on a regular basis. And in fact, one of the largest administrative burdens for HCPs are technologies that are not consumerized, that are not built for for that best-in-class user experience in mind. So at Ostro, one of the big themes Ahmed actually recognized very early on in the growth of the company is this ideal of consumerization. And Ahmed asked, is there a way for us to provide that same experience directly to patients and HCPs in a regulatory compliant way? And I'll have Ahmed get a little bit more into some of the details on that, but that is a very big theme that we continue to see evolving and continuing to take the minds of more and more marketers, whether it's an HCP brand manager, omni-channel lead, or D2C marketer. We continue to see more and more recognizing the need to provide more consumerized experiences for HCPs and patients. And the last thing I'll say on it is just to quickly define it. What is consumerization again? Consumerization is personalization. Consumerization, again, is an intuitive UI, UX experience. Consumerization is convenience. And consumerization now is an experience people almost expect, having AI-driven experiences in their day-to-day lives, just given so many applications are increasingly more and more adopting AI within Google. You see Google leveraging AI now within search. So you actually can access Gemini within search. A lot of consumers are using ChatGPT. So again, that is a big theme that we continue to see emerge.
Yeah, to me, it feels like ease of use, right?
Yep.
When I think of consumerization, like a good, for instance, was coming here to Philadelphia. Tried to use the American Airlines app, and it just kept crashing. I didn't use the app, so what did I do? I just go on the website, use the website.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting experience just from 2 days ago.
Yeah. I mean, if you can imagine, like think about a doctor that's trying to treat a patient or a doctor that's trying to learn more about a drug, and that entire experience is just filled with friction,
Yeah.
right? It's really creating more difficulty for the HCP to learn about a new drug. And if anything, Ahmed and I always talk about how if there's any one area where you want consumerization to really be at its peak, to provide that most frictionless experience for the end user, it's going to be about learning about new drugs. Imagine, again, when anyone is sick, the number one focus on your mind is getting better, right? So it's the number one experience that should be consumerized.
Yeah, I love it. That's interesting. So to both of you, how do you envision AI transforming the relationship between patients and pharmaceutical brands in the next 5 years?
Absolutely. This is going to be the first time in history that patients are going to have in their pocket the power of a medical team of researchers. So patients can go, ask a question, and have an AI large language model answer those questions for that specific patient, and then they go to the doctor, right? So the manufacturers need to understand that the order of operations or the steps of the journey of a patient are going to change with AI, where in some cases, the patients are going to be coming in with more information than they ever had before.
Yeah. Yeah, I talked to an oncologist yesterday, and that's what he was saying, that he has patients come in now with a ChatGPT readout, and why didn't I get this test? And then he has to go back and try and figure out why they didn't get that test. So it's an interesting conversation to have. So I could see that being
And we're actually hearing from HCPs, there's a little bit of frustration when patients are coming in and then they're actually asking physicians about things that they may not have caught. And then when the physician responds, they'll put that into ChatGPT and then they'll come back. So it feels like, the physician and ChatGPT are kind of engaging in dialogue.
Competing almost.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
interesting. Fascinating. So, and kind of building on that point, what are some of the biggest challenges in aligning AI-driven insights with regulatory and promotional review constraints in the life sciences?
So maybe I can start and then pass it over. This is the first time that pharma manufacturers are dealing with a non-deterministic piece of technology. So manufacturers today, every single piece of content ultimately has to get submitted to the FDA through a 2253 in the exact way it's going to be presented.
Right.
Generative AI kind of provides a different element because in some cases, there's a non-deterministic output. And as a result of that, the manufacturers need to deal with these kinds of non-deterministic outputs. So I think it's going to be a challenge because there's going to need to be a way to adopt this technology, but also acknowledge that some of the outputs aren't going to exactly be in the way that the manufacturers intended. So it's going to be a big challenge.
There will be. And one of the things that we intently do at Ostro is we partnered very closely with these compliance leaders within PRC, within MLR, because we recognize that these concept of regulatory, they're there to protect the best needs. They're there to protect the needs of the patient. They're also there to protect the needs of the HCP, right? Imagine that, to Ahmed's point just now, like if if non-PRC MLR approved content is presented to an HCP, maybe the AI slightly hallucinates. The doctor now is basing a medical decision off of a piece of information that is not accurate when it comes down to that 2253 submitted and approved content. That in turn is going to result and negatively impact patients based on that doctor's misunderstanding of how that therapeutic treatment option works. So again, at Ostro, one of the things that we did was we partnered very closely with these regulatory bodies at the foundation about when it came to building our product. And we married that best-in-class regulatory compliance expertise internally, led of course by Ahmed. We have a phenomenal team of compliance leaders, our general counsel, who have a deep understanding of things like data privacy. We married that expertise with a deep understanding of best-in-class consumer experience. Again, we have many members of our team from these world-class leading consumerized companies like Amazon, companies like Microsoft. We brought in that best-in-class talent, hims and hers, to marry that with the regulatory compliance expertise. And that has been truly foundational when it comes down to how we think about building entirely new products, either products we've already introduced to market, and then of course there's a number of products, unfortunately we can't share today, that are within our pipeline that again are really exciting, and we're looking forward to releasing and announcing those soon.
Great, that's awesome. Yeah. That's fantastic. So I love this question, especially for you guys. What's a contrarian belief that you hold about the future of healthcare that most people in the industry would disagree with?
There's a huge push for personalization. We believe in personalization at Ostro. But I believe that hyper-personalization, N of one personalization, is actually overrated. I think we only need 10, 20 personas when you're actually trying to engage with a patient or an HCP, and that will give you the most bang for your buck in terms of engaging. So, what we see is a lot of times people will say, okay, we're not going to do any personalization because it's too hard to get through regulatory. We figured a way to actually do that. But the flip side of that is actually having so many personas that you're actually not engaging in a way that actually materially is different from others. Right. So I think the most important thing is 10 to 20 personas, clear value prop, and that persona is kind of the sweet spot.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? What would be the danger of too much personalization?
Yeah. Imagine if you are going onto a website and you didn't log in and you feel like it just knows that you're on that website. There's a bit of a creepy factor there. And so if you go into a hyper-personalization world, it can actually have the opposite effect of what the marketer is trying to convey.
Right. Whereas suggestive content based on your persona is going to provide you with a more frictionless experience. So again, to Ahmed's point, there might be a subset of 10 to 20 personas that, again, are personalized specific to the very needs that end user is looking for. You might have, for example, if we look at HCP, let's take oncology, for example. You might have an oncologist that's been practicing medicine for 20 years. And they're the type of individual that it almost feels like medicine has been reinvented for that oncologist every 2 years. If you actually look at the status of the amount of medical information that's being introduced every single day, it's rapidly increasing and continuing to increase.
Right.
So that individual might be looking for, novel pieces of information around clinical trial data. Whereas someone that's newer to the field of oncology, someone who might have been just practicing right out of their fellowship for 1 year, they're still trying to get their bearings and trying to understand the foundational knowledge that can help them better understand a lot of the newer research that's being introduced to market. And again, they might be looking for a little bit more guidance when it comes down to understanding of key terms. So for example, if there's a new CAR-NK or a CAR-T therapy, what is the difference between how this CAR-NK therapy and CAR-T therapy relate to some previous oncologic treatments that have been introduced to the market? They might require a little bit more handholding. So again, Chris, if you were to sit down and break down the number of active personas that a brand is targeting, it would probably be pretty challenging for you to go beyond 10, maybe even 20 at the max. So to Ahmed's point, I think that, again, this whole concept of a one-to-one experience, not only because it's creepy, but it's also not necessary, right? But there is a lot of ways, that these AI tools can still provide that level of guidance. So,
And they can quickly individualize, right?
Absolutely. Right. So for example, like just because an experience is not targeted to one of these 10 to 20 personas, the benefit of having AI-enabled technologies on the site can still help power. So like if a patient, for example, is confused in terms of they don't have the health literacy to understand some medical term, right? They'll still have the ability to interact with the AI to get that better understanding. But again, the rest of their experience will still provide that level of more detailed guidance when it comes down to the type of content that might be recommended to them or introduced as they pursue down the path of a deeper journey through the brand. So again, that would be an example of kind of how you can marry an aspect of a more personalized experience without having to build out hyper-personalized one-to-one personas.
So looking towards the future, gentlemen, what's one bold prediction you'd make about the future of pharma marketing?
I want to go back to what Chase said in the beginning of this conversation, where when people ask us, what is the future of life sciences commercialization? I say, look to the consumer world today, and you'll see the life sciences of the future. I believe there's going to be a world where patients are going to be able to text the manufacturers to get a copay card immediately with AI approved responses. Same thing with email. Doctors are going to be able to respond to these mass email outreaches and ask questions like, what is the mechanism of action, and get regulatorily approved content. And that's what we see in the consumer world today, right?
And just to take it a step further, I think Ahmed hit on a number of key points. Ahmed is talking about the channel of choice for the patient or the channel of choice for the HCP, SMS being one channel, email being another channel. This experience is going to happen across the channel of any of these individuals' choices. So again, it's going to happen directly on an LLM, right? Where a patient or an HCP will be able to access that PRC MOR approved content directly through that channel, right? So it's going to happen directly through whatever the channel of choice is for that individual. Now, just to take what Ahmed said a step further, it's also about how these channels interact. At the end of the day, everything is a multi-channel experience, right? And these channels are so strongly integrated to the point where, Chris, you're going to be expecting, if you're interacting with a manufacturer over email and you're engaging, asking about how does the mechanism of action of a drug work, or how does my patient save money on this drug, you're almost going to expect the rest of your experience across other channels, i.e. SMS and others, to almost take some of the questions you've asked previously in alternative channels into account, right? So that it almost can predict what it is you might be looking for before you even have to type it in. And that goes back to the whole concept of convenience when we talked about consumerization. How do you get that convenience aspect? How do I get you, Chris, the information you're looking for? Well, again, with less clicking, less thinking, less scrolling. And again, it might happen because, again, through one channel interaction or second channel interaction, I've now learned the type of content that you're looking for. So now I know how to package it just for you, Chris.
Exactly. I love it. Fascinating, gentlemen. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for the time.
Yeah.